Hello, and welcome back to Alice Talks Football, and welcome back to another live Manchester United news, takeover news, transfer news, and general news show on the channel where we discuss the news, all things Man United, get your thoughts and opinions involved. We'll talk a bit about the Wigan game towards the end, the Tottenham game, just the football in general, but I want to dive into the news to begin with because David Ornstein has just dropped a big exclusive story looking like one January deal is very close to being a done deal. So, what is the first deal that David Ornstein has dropped? Going on, he said Sevilla are advancing towards an agreement to sign Hannibal on loan from United. Everton still keen, but as things stand, Sevilla offer favoured by Manchester United 20-year-old. Deal would likely include high option to turn permanent plus buyback clause. So, interesting. We're going to dive into this in a second, but in today's show, we'll be discussing Amrabat's exit, Mejbri's exit, Martial's exit blocked, Sancho's obviously a done deal. We'll be discussing a few other bits and bobs, news stories, some takeover news on Paul Mitchell, Dan Ashworth, but it looks like this is the week where things are going to move. There's suggestions by credible sources in the media that now Sancho has left, now that the sort of takeover is sort of starting to get in place, this is going to be the week where movement is going to happen. Not necessarily movement in the transfer market like United actually signing some good players, we can only dream, but movement of sales, maybe a loan deal, and movement more so in the front of Paul Mitchell, Dan Ashworth, all of that. I feel like movement is sort of starting with this Hannibal Mejbri deal. So, Hannibal Mejbri. I like Mejbri. I think he's a good young player. I don't know if he'll be United level, but I would have rather seen him play the McTominay versus Wigan. I'd rather seen him with Maino and Bruno than McTominay versus Wigan. Same with the likes of sort of Dan Gore, same with the likes of Isaac Hansen, I think that I'd rather see Pelistri than Anthony. I'd rather see Ahmad than Anthony. But ultimately, he's a good player, but he's not getting the minutes, so it makes sense for him to leave on loan because at the end of the day, whilst we'd rather see him than McTominay, that's not going to happen. So the best scenario is that he goes out on loan, has good, and then that means A, either we get a bit of money for him, or B, he's really good, 10 out decided in the plans, and we save a bit of money in the market. In a sense, Alex said Hannibal needs a loan, but can't tell me a physical, energetic player shouldn't have played for us more this term. Exactly. Considering, our issues with matching intensity of oppositions, Hannibal Mejbri could have been very, very important, especially considering that when we played like Burnley, he was probably man of the match. Like in the one or two games he played, he was easily like the best player. And like if you take away McTominay's goals, because McTominay is playing because he scored a few goals here and there, Hannibal Mejbri, when he's actually played, has probably been more better than McTominay, but it's probably had more influence on the team and helped the team play better than McTominay. And people say, oh, I don't know, that's going a bit far. But if McTominay, when he doesn't score goals, does nothing. Mejbri's had times where he's been good. It's not like being a world beater, but I remember the one or two, I think that one start he had, it was good. He came on and scored a goal versus Brighton as well. January 30th, 31st is when this club tends to get started in January. Shaking my head, said Alex. Alex is spot on with that. The January window opens January 1st for everyone, but United opens January 30th because United try and go by January, trying not to do any work, then panicking because they realise how crap we are, and then they're like, okay, we'll do a last minute panic deal as well. Can we try some McTominay, Anthony to raise money? I feel like that as well. I do apologise if there's a bit of lag coming here and out. I'm going to put my phone in airplane mode. I don't know, as soon as I go live, my Wi-Fi is like, so hopefully that's not too bad. But I want to dive more into the story. I want to dive more into sort of information coming out at the moment because there's quite a lot to talk about in regards to Manchester United and Manchester United's plans. So Hannibal Mejbri going on loan, I think, is probably the smart option. I think it's the best option. I think it's probably what needs to happen. I like Hannibal Mejbri. He's a great young player, but as I've said, he needs the minutes because let's be honest, Ten Hag isn't going to give him the minutes, and we can debate whether he should get the minutes or not. I'd personally rather him play than McTominay. I'd rather him go to Everton than, of course, Sevilla on loan, get that Premier League experience, play for Sean Dyche. Easy for us to keep an eye on him. But I do know that Everton have James Garner, they have Decore, they have Amadou Onana, who he would struggle to potentially get minutes over in midfield. Everton's midfield has been quite solid this season, but I do think he would be a good dynamic. For Everton, it seems that he favours a move to Sevilla, who is 16th in La Liga, which is a very tough environment for him to go into. I mean, being at Manchester United is probably a particularly tough environment right now, so it doesn't make much of a difference. But obviously going to Sevilla, it's going to be quite a tough environment for him to sort of go into, but it will be a tested character. He can either come out of it struggling or come out of it playing quite well. And I think Mejbri's a player of good character. He's a good player with good potential, and obviously I'm a big fan of Hannibal Mejbri. I think in terms of a buyback clause and a sale, I mean, I'm open to selling Mejbri if it is a high option, if it's a high, if it's a loan with an obligation, not obligation, but with a buy option of maybe 25, 30 million, then you're looking at, okay, that could be interesting, because that's probably what Man City and Chelsea would get for the academy players. But if it's something like 10 million or less, I wouldn't even be bothered. Like at least 20 million for the guy to consider a sale, because while I would rather the likes of McTominay and Anthony go than the Pelistris and Hannibal Mejbris, unfortunately, because of FFP issues and how badly Man United run, if we want to actually afford to bring in new signings, we're going to have to sell those youth and then find a way to get rid of the deadwood. But it looks like, I was about to say for Conor Pelistri, it looks like Mejbri is very close to a move away from Manchester United on loan as well. So only McTominay, Maino and Bruno left for the midfield after the FA Cup game. We're very thin in midfield, and there's obviously more updates coming out with Manchester United potentially signing a midfielder, but that is way more likely in the summer. And apparently Manchester United are looking at a lot of midfielders because they're obviously interested in sort of a long-term replacement for Casemiro and Eric. So Manchester United are actually trying to long-term bring in 2 midfielders in the summer, but this summer it's most likely to be 1 because, well, it's Manchester United. So I want to actually talk a little bit about midfield, Manchester United's midfield plan, other info sort of coming out at the moment as well. So obviously, Manchester United have been linked with moving on Casemiro. It's been confirmed today that Amrabat will leave at the end of the season, which we'll dive into in a second. Well, most likely will end at the end of the season. There's a feeling McTominay goes. There's a feeling that Amrabat, McTominay, Eriksen and Casemiro could all be leaving Manchester United within the next probably year to year and a half. Because I feel 1 or 2 might just stay for another season. Now that means that's Maino, that's Mount, that's Bruno, and then that's no one else. So that's thinking, well, we need at least 2 midfielders to come in, particularly if you're selling the young ones. So we've been linked to the likes of Amadou Onana. We were actually trying to sign Fofana of Monaco in the summer with Paul Mitchell going in there. That could heat up. There's been people like Mats Wiefer thrown about a little bit here and there. But Manchester United have looked at Zambrano, Manchester United have looked at Palacios, Manchester United have looked at a number of holding sixes, and some information came out to say that Manchester United have been looking at sort of sixes for a while because they long-term want to replace Casemiro. It's not just to do with his wages. Casemiro could stay, but United have been eyeing up number 6/8 hybrids for a while, with Amadou Onana and Fofana the most sort of linked. Manchester United actually made an offer on loan to bring Fofana in. Fabrizio Romano confirmed that in summer, but obviously Monaco were like, you ain't getting them on loan with a buy clause. Man United didn't have the money to bring a midfielder in the summer, so they were trying to get Amrabat and they were trying to get Fofana on loan. And apparently that Ten Hag and the board actually thought that Fofana was a better fit, but Monaco weren't willing to do a loan deal, so that's why we went and got, of course, Amrabat. Now the feeling is that Amrabat will go and United will make a more permanent move for Fofana of Monaco, who we'll dive into in a second. But Manchester United have also been looking at players like Palacios that could do that sort of Eriksen and sort of 6 role. Manchester United have been looking at understudies for Casemiro, but Man United have obviously been highly scouting João Neves, but Manchester United see João Neves as a 2025 target, not a 2024 target, with the expectation that he'll stay at Benfica another year to increase that development. But it seems that United want a 6/8 hybrid, but potentially, depending on who leaves, could bring in 2 players. That's what Man United's midfield rebuild is. We talk about how we need a left centre-back and a right centre-back, but Manchester United have been heavily scouting midfielders for a while because of the ageing, the lack of athleticism in our midfield. We've been looking at a number of names, and with Amrabat's exit is set to free up the possibility for United to bring in a second midfielder in the summer. And as I've said, a lot of people don't realise it, but Man United have been looking at midfielders since August, September. Manchester United have been preparing to bring in a midfielder for a very long time. Even if Casemiro stays, even if we keep Casemiro on high wages, Manchester United still want to bring in another midfielder. That is very much the plan for the summer. We want to sell Casemiro because of his high wages, but ultimately, well, Man United looking to sell Casemiro because of his high wages, but ultimately they don't mind him staying another season. But even if he does stay another season, Man United are looking at that replacement for Casemiro because they know sort of his age and more advancements on that. Please do hit that like button if you have not already, and of course subscribe down below if you're new. We've got some information on Dybala to Manchester United. We've got some information on Fofana to Manchester United. We've got some information on the other few players linked loan deals. And more. I like Fofana from Monaco, watched a few matches and seems like an all-round type CM. Yeah, same here. I like him. I don't know enough about him to give you much context on the player and to say this is the guy. Like, obviously I watch mostly Premier League, but I'm with Alex, and what I've watched from this guy, he seems like a very sort of good midfielder, can cover a lot of ground. It would help probably our out of possession issues a lot. He's obviously still a youngish player. I mean, come summer, if we're still being linked to him heavily, I will definitely do some proper analysis on the guy and watch him. He's 24 years of age. He's decent height, decent physical presence. I mean, what I can do actually, I'm going to show you this here. We can go to data MB here, and we can look at the data of all the midfielders that Manchester United are looking at here. I think this will be particularly interesting to sort of give you context on sort of what kind of players Manchester United are looking at. Oh, stupid advert. What? There we go. But if you actually look at Fofana here, make sure I got the right one. 24 Monaco. We'll go off this season, and then we go off for someone like Amadou Onana, who we've also been linked to. We'll go this season. As you can see here, in terms of an all-round player statistically, because Amadou Onana has recently been linked to Arsenal, but as you can see statistically, Fofana is blue, Amadou Onana is the pink. If you look at data MB, it already shows that Fofana as an all-round player could offer more than Amadou Onana. Now, obviously, Fofana is probably playing in a better team and in an easier league, and you've got to factor that, statistics can be altered by the style of football a team plays. I did a video on Spurs signing Radu Dragusin today, and I said Radu Dragusin's statistics in possession, his percentiles in possession, are particularly low compared to other centre-backs, but I said that because he plays for the team that has the second least amount of possession in Serie A, so of course he's going to be in the lower percentile for volume passing because he's not going to get the ball as much as other centre-backs. So obviously statistics can be misleading to an extent, but you can look at it from the basis of these statistics that going forward, Fofana would offer a lot more than Amadou Onana, but potentially defensively Amadou Onana would help. And you've got to look at it in terms of maybe a long-term partner for Kobbie Mainoo. Amadou Onana maybe partners Kobbie Mainoo a bit better defensively because he could allow Kobbie Mainoo the freedom to do the passing higher up the pitch, whereas obviously we see Kobbie Mainoo is playing as a 6, but we know he's a natural 8, whereas Fofana's a lot better on the ball than Amadou Onana. But would that mean Kobbie Mainoo drops deeper and stays in that 6 role? Is Kobbie Mainoo's best position that 6 role? He's doing great there. I mean, there's a lot of questions, but those are the sort of the 2 midfielders that Manchester United are heavily looking at, and 2 midfielders that I'm interested in us getting. But I think the interesting thing is with Paul Mitchell coming into Manchester United, which seems quite likely considering Paul Mitchell's not in a job and that he's got connections with Dave Brailsford and he's been linked to United lots and he's moved back to the Manchester area. I have a feeling we will get Paul Mitchell. That's not guaranteed. We are going to dive into the information on Paul Mitchell, but him being at Monaco, Youssouf Fofana being a Monaco kind of signing, it'd be interesting to see what happens there. But those are the 2 midfielders that Manchester United are heavily looking at. And then obviously the other midfielder we're looking at, which I don't think will happen because you've got to realise he's a very different player, is João Neves. Now, I think he would ultimately come in a year's time as well, but that gives you a little bit of context on who Manchester United are looking at. But I don't want to dive too much into that. I do kind of want to get into the news and information. Fofana replacing Casemiro Eriksson is a perfect start and a good idea to show United fans what good recruitment is like, says Red. So very positive there in the chat as well. We are talking about players in lesser teams from all over the world, but how much more of a risk would it be to give some of our youth players a chance? They're least aware of the English league. Well, I wish we gave more of our youth players a chance, but unfortunately we don't. Alice, do you think Klopp will go for Amrabat? Probably not now. He's been pretty stinky at United. Not that it's really his fault as well. And 77 likes on the road to 200 likes, people. So do hit that like button as well. Onana, I'm not as sold on, will likely cost a lot more, has size, but not a lot on the skill set. Amadou Onana out of possession has what we need. Amadou Onana, in terms of his duels, his physicality, his ability to cover ground, has what we need out of possession, but in possession he lacks. He can't really progress the ball via passing. He's not naturally someone that's good at creating chances, and he's also not a natural 6. I think he could do well with Kobbie Mainoo because Kobbie Mainoo's passing ability is really good, and Amadou Onana's ability off the ball is really good. So Amadou Onana's strengths are Kobbie Mainoo's weaknesses, and Amadou Onana's weaknesses are Kobbie Mainoo's strengths. But I do think, for me, if we just signed Amadou Onana to replace Casemiro, that wouldn't be enough because Amadou Onana isn't a proper 6. If we brought Amadou Onana in and then like a natural 6, or we brought Fofana in a natural 6, I'd be convinced. But I do think if we're looking at Casemiro replacement, we've really got to look at that 6 role and think about Kobbie Mainoo being an 8 because I think Amadou Onana does have weaknesses on the ball, which I'm surprised Arsenal are going for him, because I think if I was going to be honest, Amadou Onana, I think, would be a perfect fit for Newcastle, because Bruno Guimaraes is their best player on the ball, their best creative player, but he has to play as their deepest player because they don't have a DM. But if you could play the pivot with Amadou Onana, that would allow Bruno Guimaraes to comfortably go higher at the pitch, and Amadou Onana could cover more ground. I always think he should just go to Newcastle. If I think that would be the best move for him, followed by United. But it'll be interesting to keep an eye on that one as well. But I think with news coming out today, and let me get into this information, there's news coming out from multiple sources, Sky, obviously United Muppeteers, all basically confirming Amrabat exit from Manchester United is likely. Ten Hag has decided not to keep Amrabat. Manchester United and INEOS have already decided on an Amrabat exit, which has been confirmed. So Manchester United are not going to sign Amrabat permanently. The United Muppeteers have also confirmed that today. United won't be signing Amrabat permanently, and other sources came out and said that United's decision not to sign Amrabat permanently means that they will have more funds available to sign a midfielder in the summer. Amrabat leaving after his loan gives Manchester United the opportunity to bring in the midfielders that they want to. There's a possibility that United will sign 2 midfielders, but United are definitely looking at signing a sort of 6/8 hybrid player in the summer, potentially Monaco's Youssouf Fofana and potentially Everton's Amadou Onana has most recently been linked, but they have also been linked to Subramendi, I can't say his name, the Real Sociedad player. And they're looking at someone that could play as a 6, that could play as an 8, is what Man United's plan is to do in terms of the midfield, has been said there. And I think there will be a lot more movement on that sort of come summer as well. I wouldn't keep Amrabat either. Not bad, but I would want a more mobile, energetic type CM. I agree. I wanted us to sign Amrabat. He's been disappointing, not particularly his fault, but he's not done enough for us to say, let's keep the guy, keep him as well. Keep smashing the lights, guys. Big up Gaz. Big up everybody in the chat as well. And Eric Ten Hag needs to be more open to youth chances. With plenty of opportunities this season with underperforming players. I agree. I would have rather look. I don't know if Palissi is going to be good enough, but I think he offers more than Anthony. I don't know if Mejbri would be good enough, but I think he'd offer more than McTominay. And I think that's the one most disappointing thing from this season. Well, there's loads of disappointing things in the season, but considering the season is very disappointing, you'd think the one positive to come out of it would be youth chance. And I guess you can say, well, Garnacho and Kobbie Mainoo are basically starters now. But you still got to look at it from other perspectives as well. David Ornstein did say on Hannibal Mejbri, there's an expectation that the Hannibal Mejbri leaving United could be a permanent deal. I sort of spoke about earlier. We have got other information that Joe Hugo signed a new contract and is set to go out on loan to Burton Albion. We've got Jadon Sancho to Borussia Dortmund. Here we go. And we've also got news on Manchester United's plans to step up and get a CEO within the next few days. So let's dive into the next bit of news and then we'll get into the live chat because I've still got stuff to get through. But Joe Hugo's just signed a new deal and he's set to join Burton Albion on loan. I think he could have got a better loan move, but you know what it is. He needs a loan. He needs minutes as well. Someone said this, Modric is better for sure. Who questions that? But if you need to rebuild, you need to rebuild from young talent. Otherwise, you're rebuilding every year. 100%. Like Modric is a good player, but as I said, as it was said, and as I reported, Jim Ratcliffe doesn't want to bring in any players over the age of 26. Do you know what's interesting? Is everything I reported the other day from just information that I'd read and someone that I'd spoke to got basically reported by 2 journalists 2 days after. So I'll show you, this is what I said on INEOS's plans regarding to transfers. So this is a bit of information here. I'll read this quickly. INEOS seems to be preparing a massive clear at Man United this summer with Casemiro and Varane set to leave unless the wages get lower. Anthony, Eriksen, Lindelof, McTominay plus Donny, Martial, Sancho will be on the list of players to move on from what I'm hearing. One of Blanc's first jobs at Juventus was to lower the wage bill and it seems this is what Ratcliffe wants to do to him. Obviously, one of the first things you're not going to do is lower the wage bill. Reports suggest that INEOS want to adopt a new transfer strategy, mostly including English players, English plus Premier League proven core in the players of the age 20 to 26 age bracket. So this is why Man United, Modric, he improves our midfield for a year. We want to go for these 20 to 26 age bracket players, but INEOS sort of going for that Premier League proven core is sort of what their plan is. Ratcliffe is very critical of Man United buying players over 30 and putting them on high wages when he visited the club back in March, so it doesn't surprise me he wants Casemiro out. I'd assume nothing happens in January as Manchester United prepare for a big summer. Once the takeover is approved by the Premier League, I would expect some movement on the Paul Mitchell, Dan Ashworth stories, and I'm going to dive into that in about 5 minutes, so stay tuned for that. We've got some interesting information coming out. Good sources reported that INEOS would be willing to pay and do what it takes to get Ashworth. Once the structure is in place, it will be Operation Clear Out and sort out the wage bill ahead of the big summer window. I read somewhere that Ratcliffe's investment will add 90 million to the transfer budget, meaning that we have an FFP overhaul 105 million and not 15 million. But as I said, actions speak louder than words. I did clarify I can only realistically see Casemiro leaving if if Ten Hag doesn't want him, if Saudi come in, and a lot of the players listed won't necessarily leave because it's difficult to sell certain players, etc. But I basically said this, and it had also been reported that basically INEOS's plan, and the information I got, was to stop getting players in their 30s, even if they were good, because they know you have to constantly rebuild, and go for players in that 26 age bracket. And that's obviously two journalists 2 days later came out and basically said INEOS are looking at English but also Premier League proven players who range between about age 20 and 26, not wanting to buy players over 26. It's likely that this will be the plan in place for the summer, but firstly they want to get the recruitment structure in place. It was also said 2 days later by Jack Talbot and other sources, essentially what I said here. So I think that's very much INEOS's plan. They're not interested in getting these 30-year-olds from Real Madrid, this and that. I think they are interested in young players, because now we've got Eriksen in, it was quite old, Casemiro that's in, that's quite old. While we want to sell and move on McTominay, we're also thinking, well, do we need to sell and move on Eriksen and Casemiro? We need a replacement for McTominay, we need a replacement for Eriksen, we need a replacement for Casemiro, and Amrabat will leave. So 4 will leave, but we'll need at least 3 to come in, because I think Kobbie Mainoo will count as 1, and we've already got him. But if McTominay, Amrabat, Eriksen and Casemiro all leave this summer, I don't think they all will leave. But if they do, because it is reported to be a busy summer, we've now got to sign 3 midfielders, even though 2 of them only came in 2 seasons ago. And to be honest, McTominay should have been sold in the summer anyway. And I think because you are buying players that are constantly old, you're constantly looking to replace them. Whereas if we go for a Fofana that's 24, who'll be 25 by the time he signs for United, there's 4 or 5 years before you've got to replace him. João Neves could be next season. So you've got to look at it that way as well. But it's interesting to think. I'm not a believer in Amrabat, but the one game he started in the double pivot, we got a clean sheet. The thing is, I wanted to see Amrabat and Mainoo, not McTominay and Mainoo. It brings more balance to the team. McTominay, I just think, gets in the way. Ten Hag's not given Amrabat a run of games to prove himself. He's not massively played him in his natural position. When he has played as a 6, it's the impossible job because of the lack of support from McTominay. So while Amrabat hasn't been impressive, I do also think, well, we've not used him to his strengths. I'd like to see Amrabat and Mainoo play together. I want to see, well, Casemiro is going to be back in 2 weeks. So I want to see Casemiro and Mainoo play together, more importantly, as well. Ragnick had it right all along. You need young, hungry players as well. Only English players. It was an English core. I don't think Ratcliffe's interested in signing only English players, because if you look at it, there's some great English players out there. Like, I think Branthwaite of Everton is a fantastic centre-back, but I think if he's Spanish, he's for 40 million. I think because he's English, he'll be 60 million. So while I like a lot of the English players out there, and I think having that English Premier League proven core is important, you've also got to go value for money. English players are also incredibly inflated, and that's where INEOS will have to watch out. That's where INEOS will have to be careful as well. You know, I think that we've got a lot of talent, but I think, can we rely fully? Like, Elise's good, Branthwaite's good, Ezzy's good. There's some great English talent out there, but realistically, are they good enough to take Manchester United to title-winning status? I think there's talent good enough to take us to top 4 status, but are they good enough to take us to title-winning status? And also value for money. If they're English, they're going to be inflated. Nico Williams' release clause is 48 million. Elise's release clause is 60 million. Nico Williams, you could argue, is a better player than Elise, but Elise's Premier League proven. But that's 12 million difference for 2 players of similar ability that could both be right wingers for United. So INEOS do have to be careful with that idea of having this sort of English-British kind of core as well. Continuing on, I do want to dive through a few chats as well. Also, why we should be getting some of those young South American talents could be classed as homegrown. I honestly, Brighton just signed a young left back. With our left back issues, why aren't we doing that? Do you know what I mean? I always think United should be taking advantage of the South American talent. Like Zambrano could be a really good one. You sign him for 5 million, you send him out on loan to a decent club, and then all of a sudden he's either worth sort of 25, 30 million, but he's not quite good enough for United, and you sell him on to like a mid-table side, or he becomes a starter for you. And brilliant, 5 million. Man City is starting to do that. I think someone we should have looked at getting is Gabriel Moscardo. That DM, I think, is someone that United might regret not going for, because defensively he looks good. And I've always said this, I don't think Kobbie Mainoo is a long-term 6. I think Kobbie Mainoo is a long-term 8. I think United need to be looking at a long-term 6. If I could bring anyone in the whole world in, I'd bring in Tchouaméni. But realistically, that's never going to happen, is it, as well? Interesting information coming out as well about Manchester United's plans. So I want to quickly read this and dive into this little bit of information here. So, as said, Manchester United are looking at this January window as more of a way to get a lot of players out, young players out on loan, and potentially bring in some signings on loan. Now that Jadon Sancho to Borussia Dortmund, here we go, is here, Manchester United have started looking at potential replacements and potential players available they can bring in to replace Sancho, but are still on hold depending on if Martial leaves. Martial's effectively out of Ten Hag's plans, having not been in the match squad for the last 7 games, and there's a feeling that even if Martial stays, he will not get the game time as Erik Ten Hag is trying to force him out the club. However, Erik Ten Hag needs a striker, but Manchester United could be reluctant to sign a striker on loan if Martial stays, even though it's unlikely that he's going to get minutes because we are an incompetent club. But now that Sancho was gone, now that the INEOS deal is closer to being ratified, Manchester United is seriously warming up for the January window. They say seriously warming up for the January window, but you have to also say, well, actually, Manchester United don't get ready for the January window to January 30th, as Alex mentioned. It seems that Joe Hugo, Dan Gore will be among young players to go out on loan. Charlie McNeil has been recalled from his loan, but Alvaro Fernandez could be sold to raise some money. It's also said that Facundo Pellistri and Mejbri are set to go out on loan with an obligation to buy, and Manchester United could be open to selling the stars to raise some money, as they know they've got big rebuild plans ahead of the summer. Now, Anthony Martial has been in talks with Fenerbahce and had interest from Marseille, Fenerbahce, and the Saudi Pro League, but Martial intends to stay at United and fight for his place. 250 grand a week. 250 grand a week. Martial is on course to leave United for free in the summer, but is desperate to stay and prove his worth to Ten Hag, and is interested in rejecting moves from other clubs. 250k a week. 250k a week. The United Muppeteers then came out and said some information in regards to the takeover, and they said obviously the INEOS deal is obviously got to be approved by the Premier League, and that should be in a couple of weeks. And then they said in the next 7 to 10 days there will be some significant actions beginning regarding lining things up for Manchester United new CEO and sporting director under INEOS. It said, well, it's said today earlier by other sources that, Blanc might not go through, but it said in the next 7 to 10 days, Manchester United will be doing action in terms of bringing their CEO. And once Manchester United bring in their CEO, there will be more information on who the sporting director will be, who the recruitment director will be. And that is rumoured to be Paul Mitchell and Dan Ashworth, who United are reportedly very determined to get. And INEOS are willing to pay a fee to bring them in, as they see INEOS see sort of Paul Mitchell and Dan Ashworth being more important than signings, and that's why they're willing to actually pay money to get them in. Obviously, Paul Mitchell they can bring in anyway, but they'd actually be willing to sort of bring in money, pay money to bring the likes of Dan Ashworth in. So let me share my screen and let me share this story with you guys, because I think it's particularly interesting. So Chris Wheeler came out today and said there's every chance Manchester United will employ a director of football and head of recruitment. Dan Ashworth and Paul Mitchell, both known to Sir Brailsford, fit the bill and seem to be the leading contenders at the moment, but there will be other contenders. And The Athletic, I think it might have been Ornstein, it was someone very credible, came out and said that United are willing to go all out and do what it takes to bring in the likes of one of these players. It was reported that Manchester United, not one of these players, one of these members of staff, it was sort of reported that Manchester United are willing to sort of go all out and really pay a bit of money to get Dan Ashworth in. Paul Mitchell won't cost, but that Man United are very determined to get Dan Ashworth. But there is reports that he's reluctant to leave Newcastle because he's not sure about how much freedom he will be given at Manchester United. He's worried that will he be given the freedom he needs to do the job that he wants to do at Manchester United. What top 6 PL club potentially do nothing if they're in their situation having a poor season? And this is exactly what I wanted to rant about, to be honest with you. Look, I'm going to have a chat about Manchester United. So Manchester United are out of Europe. They're out of the Carabao Cup. They are, 8th in the league, not doing particularly well, not looking convincing. It's not even like we've been unlucky to lose games. We've more so been lucky to win games. And I think our goal difference compared to those around us highlights how poor that we've been this season. Because sometimes I think if you're in 3rd place, but you have the 10th best goal difference, I always think you're overachieving in 3rd. Whereas if you're in 4th place and you have the best goal difference in the league, you're almost underachieving. Manchester United have got the 10th best goal difference in an 8th, which suggests we're overachieving our points. All statistics suggest we're overachieving our points. Manchester United aren't in a good situation. Yes, Casemiro is returning from injury. Yes, Martin is returning from injury. Yes, Mount and Maguire will be back soon. And they get to that extent, is this really the right time to bring in Todibo? It's not like Spurs where they literally have no centre-backs and having to play full-backs. We do have centre-back. I get that to an extent. I also get okay, but we want to bring in Paul Mitchell. We want to bring in Dan Ashworth before we bring anyone else in, blah, 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 blah. And you want the structure in place before you sign anyone permanently. But I also go, look, the season is over, but the top 4 race is still on. There's still a chance to get top 4. If any other club, if Man City were in this scenario, if Liverpool were in this scenario, they would be investing. They would be investing in the January window. they'd be looking to bring people in the January window, and Man United have sat back and thought, oh, well, we could bring in Choupo-Moting. Oh, we could bring Marlon. It's like, I get that you don't really want to spend because you want to wait till the summer. And I get that there's not the best options available, but you can make things happen. You could go all out for Todibo. You could go all out for Fofana with Monaco. Amadou Onana, it's been confirmed today, is available in the January window because Everton need the money, and he would be about £45 million. If United were really determined to save the season, they could go out and buy someone, but they won't. And I did a video on my second channel today, and I said, Spurs are clever. I said, while I didn't want Timo Werner at Manchester United, Spurs have gone out and they've brought in Dragusin and Timo Werner, and they've taken advantage of the January window. 2 seasons ago, Man U, West Ham, Arsenal and Spurs were all in about 3-4 points of each other, battling it for 4th spot. Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City was top 3 nailed on. And in the 21-22 season, Man U, Spurs, West Ham, who were up there, and of course, and I think we only didn't finish above West Ham because of a Brighton win or something. But basically, all those teams were up there. Man U, Spurs, West Ham, Brighton, all fighting for 4th spot. One of those teams was going to get Champions League. Man United did nothing in January. We let Enzo Fernandez stay at River Plate, despite Ragnick suggesting bring him in. Ragnick also suggested we could try someone like Sakaria, Haidara on the cheap. Man United said no. Ragnick said we could get Kessie on the cheap because his contract's expiring. They were like, no. And some of them I get why we didn't get. But he highly suggested we went and got Julian Alvarez for £40 million because he said that Ronaldo's aging. This was when the whole Greenwood thing went down. And then there was also not Falcao, Cavani, he was aging, and Martial, who'd gone out on loan, he was saying, well, you don't really have a striker other than 37-year-old Ronaldo, and he was like, Julian Alvarez, 40 million. Man United did nothing that January. Arsenal did nothing that January. I don't know if West Ham did anything that January. Who did something that January? Tottenham. Tottenham got in Kulusevski, and they got in Bentonka. And Tottenham finished in 4th spot. 4 teams that had a very underperforming poor season. Well, West Ham having a good season, and technically Arsenal were, because it wasn't 8th, it was 5th. But Man United, Tottenham and Arsenal, not where they should be. And the one team that invested, Tottenham, got in the top 4 because they took advantage of the January window. They've done that again now. Manchester United don't take advantage of the January window. Manchester United go, oh, we're bringing Weghorst. We've lost Ronaldo. We've lost Ronaldo, the greatest goal scorer of all time. We don't want to do anything in January, even though Cody Gakpo's there, even though João Felix is there. That's a much better player. We'll get Weghorst on loan because we can get him on loan and we don't have to spend money, even though we saved 20 million by Ronaldo going to Saudi Arabia, and we could have afforded Gakpo and we could have afforded João Felix. We won't do it. We will get Weghorst in. We need a striker. Haaland's available for 20 million. No, let's get a Garlo. Because United don't like to do stuff in January. United love to pretend that a January window isn't when you do business. John Murta came out and said that United will look to do business in the summer, not January. Every year, and this is the United sporting director saying this, they basically write off the in October they'll be saying, well, oh, no, we're not looking to do much in January. We'll wait till the summer. Even when we're having our worst starts of the season, we're breaking records like most losses in a year since 1930. The board will be saying, well, we'll wait till the summer. No, there's not really much to do in January. We'll wait till the summer. Not much to do. Have you watched us play? Every single year, every single season, there is this excuse of we can't do stuff in January. We are unable to do stuff in January. And the sporting director, Murta, Arnold, have always come out and said, oh, January's not the time to do deals. Exact words. January's not the time to do deals. But Arsenal went and signed Trossard, and they've got someone else in January last year, didn't they? They brought in 2 people in January last year. Tottenham, yes, Timo Werner, but Dragusin, Bayern Munich wanted him. Very good deal there. You see, Tottenham brought in Deki. Who's Kulusevski, sorry. They brought in Bentonka in the January, who were their best players. Liverpool brought in Virgil van Dijk a couple of seasons ago. We don't have to talk about how good Virgil van Dijk is. Man United, Bruno, because we literally had to, and we were meant to get him in summer, and that was an absolute disgrace. But what happened when we brought in Bruno? We were 14 points off Leicester. We were 14 points off the top 4 with 14 games to go. 14 points off the top 4 with 14 games to go, and we brought in Bruno Fernandes. The season was written off in January when we signed Maguire, Dan James, and someone else that was someone else that was crap. Who was that? Maguire, Dan James. Oh no, it wasn't crap. It was Wan-Bissaka. But Ollie's first full season in January, we're like, oh, the season is over. We said in 2020, 4 years ago, there is no way we're getting top 4. 4 years ago, we were sat here saying there is no way we're going to get top 4, and we brought in Bruno Fernandes, and we came third. We caught a 14-point gap on Leicester. 14 games, 14-point gap on Leicester, who did drop points, but we went on this brilliant unbeaten run. Matic, Pogba, Bruno midfield. We had a bit of luck with COVID because Rashford and I think Pogba were actually injured, and that meant they actually could be involved. But the one time in the last 5, 6, 7 years that we've brought in a proper January signing, we've gone from we look like we're going to finish 6th to getting in the top 4. We look like we're going to finish about 9th. But top 5 gets you in the Champions League next season. We could potentially get 5th if we can get a good player and get a run of games going. And Man United don't do that. We could have done that last season when we were actually doing quite well, but we just had a bit of an injury crisis and Casemiro getting red cards. We could have invested better in the midfield. We could have got someone a lot better in the Weghorst. We could have the season before under Rangnick. I get that Rangnick wasn't permanent manager, but Julian Alvarez is there. You know that you're going to need a young striker for the long term. It's like we don't learn. Even the window before, we could have got Moises Caicedo that's now worth 100 million. We don't learn from our mistakes. And I think that is so infuriating because I will sit here and be honest. The season is over. We don't know if Ten Hag is going to be here at the end of the season. And I get that INEOS are coming in and we're going to get a whole new sporting director. And do we want to waste the summer budget on someone that might not be good and actually just wait until we get the people in place to make decisions on transfers? I get to an extent why United aren't looking to do anything because the season's over. We've got new people coming in. Would we rather save the money for the summer so we've got the right people making the right decisions, and we don't know if Ten Hag's going to be a come end of the season. I get that to an extent, but that shouldn't be the mentality. We are Manchester United. It shouldn't be a question of, can we get top 4 or not? It should be a must. We should be sitting there saying, well, look, Ten Hag might not be here come end of the season. Realistically, we don't want to do deals until we've got this Dan Ashworth, Paul Mitchell, whoever's coming in place. But we're in a dire position. Ten Hag wants, I don't know, Amadou Onana or Fofana. Let's go pay 40 million and get it done. Let's get this midfielder. Ten Hag needs another striker. Okay, let's go and get, I don't know, Scamacca, for example. Let's say Ten Hag wants Scamacca. Let's go and do what we need to do to get into the top 4 so then we can have more money available because we'll be in the Champions League next season, which will help us with recruitment for the next rebuild. But United don't really think like that. United don't really have that attitude, and it's frustrating as well. Mitchell should be in already, isn't he? Out of work. He's shown quality recruitment work all over the world. The reason Mitchell isn't in, from my awareness, is because the takeover isn't approved by the Premier League. Like Ratcliffe's 25% stake is announced, but it's got a couple more weeks until it's approved by the Premier League. So United can't officially bring anyone in or sign them until the Premier League has signed the deal off. So once I think the Premier League has approved the Mitchell deal, I think Paul Mitchell will be here. We've got 500 people watching, so let's see if we can hit 200 likes. How about Barella? That would be nice. Never going to happen as well. I think United not appointing a director of football and a head of recruitment is unthinkable after the talk of INEOS revamping the internal structure. Focus on progression is not possible without that kind of foundation. 100%. And I believe they will appoint these people once the Premier League approve the takeover, of course, as well. Let me just scroll down the live chat as well. Liverpool signed Virgil van Dijk and Suarez in January. Look, yeah, Bruno Fernandes arguably our best player at the moment. Well, I wouldn't say at the moment, but we signed him in January. If there's a good person available in January, do it. I mean, I get to the extent that Martinez and Maguire coming back from injury, but if I'm sitting there right now, sell Lindelof, bring in Todibo. And then that means you don't have to bother about getting a right centre back in summer, and you can focus on left centre back, 2 midfielders, right winger, and striker. But I don't know, if Nico Williams hadn't signed his new deal, then I'd be like, let's be pushing for Nico Williams. That's what I think. I think United don't show any ambition in January. Every single season, it's let's just do nothing in January, showing no ambition as well. I wonder how Spurs did those loans to buy deals with Kulu and Bentancur was really good business. It was good business, but there's probably deals, maybe not that good, but probably similar kind of deals out there, but United won't look for it. If United looked for it and tried to find it, I think they could find something good, but United don't want to look for it, so they have an excuse to take January off. That's kind of what we're like as well. Hannibal's set to join Sevilla on loan if you've just joined as well. Sell Maguire and Scott to fund a proper signing. That's what I think we should do. Look, Lindelof, 20 million. McTominay, 30 million. Maguire, 30 million. Plug them up in the January window. Even put a big stamp for sale on Anthony's forehead. Plug them up in the January window. Someone might come in, sell them, bring someone in. Yes, it's harder to do stuff in January because not everyone's available. But if there's someone Ten Hag wants and you don't have the money, sell someone. If Ten Hag wants Fofana of Monaco, put a big stamp on McTominay's head, for sale, adios, go get Fofana in. Sell Pellistri if you need to. If you need to, I don't agree with selling Pellistri before selling Anthony, but if he's going to get you some money, do you know what I mean? Go for it. Wouldn't sell Ahmad, but it's what they need to do as well. But United are just incredibly frustrating as well. Manchester United need to look more at South America. I agree. Compared to last season, Ten Hag's not had a full strength team, all due to injuries and illness. Yeah, if you watched my video I did earlier today, I got the Sky Sports got this statistic up of an injury list, and I showed it in my video earlier today. And this statistic basically showed that Manchester United have had to deal with more injuries than any other team but Newcastle. Newcastle have had 24 players out injured. Manchester United have had 23. Brighton have had 23, with the top 3 clubs that have been hit the most by injury. So while Ten Hag's man management hasn't been good enough, the McTominay obsession, playing this player, playing that player, I've been quite critical of Ten Hag's man management at times this games. You've also got to realise, well, the reason we did so well last season was Casemiro, Martinez, Varane. Once Martinez and Varane got injured and Casemiro started getting red cards, we fell off the wagon. The Casemiro, Martinez, Varane triangle gave Manchester United structure and stability to build off. McTominay couldn't get near the starting 11, so at least it felt like we had 11 men on the pitch. And Bruno started to perform quite well come second half of the season. Rashford had his purple patch, which meant that the attack not being good enough was kind of covered up by Rashford's purple patch, which we can't do this season. But the way I look at it is right now, I want to see Wan-Bissaka or Delo at right back, depends on the game who starts for me. Luke Shaw at left back, Martinez, Varane, the centre backs. I want to see Casemiro, Bosch, Kobbie Mainoo, Bosch, Bruno Fernandes, Bosch. Against lower block sides, maybe integrate a Mason Mount to help unlock. And then boom, Garnacho on the right, boom, Rashford on the left, hoping find his purple patch, boom, Højlund up top, boom, 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 a nice new signing on the bench that can come on in the attack and make the attack look good because Sancho's gone, Antony's useless, Ahmad is just back, but we shouldn't be over-reliant, and then Pellistri will go. So that's what I want to see. Will we see that? Do you know what I mean? Don't think we will, but it'd be nice to. It'd be nice to. Hannibal to join a PL team so he could develop more. I think he would have been better at Everton, but I understand it as well. Nico Williams, ex-Liverpool, won't come to United. You're thinking of Nico Williams. There's a Nico Williams, very different players. I will show you this now. Nico Williams. This is the guy I'm talking about because a lot of people, I've been talking about Man United signing Nico Williams a few times and everyone's been losing it. Oh, he's a Liverpool player. He's a Liverpool player. No, he's not. This is Nico Williams. Does this look like the guy that played for Liverpool? No. This is a winger. This is a 20-year-old winger who's Spanish and very good and very direct. Yeah? Nico Williams, very different player. Very different player. And I've got this from about 5 or 6 people. You know, this is the Williams. When I'm talking about Nico Williams, I'm not talking about Nico Williams. Different player. This is the Liverpool player. Don't want him near United. I want the other Williams near United. But it does cause confusion because I think a few people have been thinking I'm talking about someone else as well. Shea Lacey would be good. Shea Lacey's definitely one for the future, but you can't rely on Shea Lacey to come in the midfield, particularly when he's actually not back from injury till March and he's had like a 6-month-long injury. Sell Rashford for Matoma. I don't think Matoma's as good as the hype and doesn't make enough happen, but Rashford needs to find form. Sold McTominay, kept Fred. I argued this in the summer. Fred is better than McTominay. I've been saying that for ages. Just because McTominay scores goals doesn't make him better than Fred. It doesn't make him better than Fred as well. So yeah. What about Kubo? I like Kubo, but I don't know if he would suit United's style of play as well as Nico. That's sort of my point with it. If you get what I'm saying. But listen, people, I've been live for 44 minutes here, so I am going to wrap up the live stream. If you have not already, please do hit that like button. And, of course, subscribe down below to Alice Talks Football if you're new. If you do want to stay up to date with all the latest Manchester United news, transfer news, takeover news, update and more, please do subscribe down below. I do videos in the morning. I normally come out about 11 a.m., which is me rounding up all the news you need to know in 10 minutes, just getting into the news. And then I do live streams where I cover the news that's come out during the day. And then I talk to you guys in the live chat about the news, get some of your insight, discuss your opinions. And then sometimes I go off in little rants about how Man United need to do stuff in January. And we make our live streams about 45 minutes long. We make the videos about 10 minutes long. So you've got a variety of information and then me waffling and we're talking and you can get involved. So big up everyone that tuned in. I think we're actually 1 subscriber away from 77.1k. We are 1 subscriber away from 77.1k. So if you're still watching right now and you're not subscribed, do me a favor. Thank you for watching. Bye.